So with the release of Lumion 11.3, a lot of really cool sort of changes and additions got put into the software. Now, none of them are as big as the Omnilight in my opinion, and I did do a separate video about that just because I couldn't really fit it into this one in a reasonable amount of time. So I will leave a link to that one below if you want to check that out. But yeah, overall, it was an interesting one because a lot of these are things that I feel like they just been swarmed with in the feedback system. They are very kind of niche changes, but as I said, like if they are kind of making these changes, I'm assuming it's because so many people are asking for it. So it is really nice to see that they have been looking at the feedback and just kind of listening to what people have to say about it. But yeah, so here are some of the features that I think are kind of the not the biggest, but probably about the medium range ones. I will also leave a link below to all the patch notes. I really recommend you read that because there's a lot of changes in there that I just couldn't really put into this video. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let's get into it. The first change I want to take a look at is the multifunctional clip planes. For a long time, Lumion could only support one of these. I'm assuming it's just due to the kind of engine constraints and how they had it set up. But with the release of orthographic mode, they had to be able to put in more than one clip plane. So I don't know if they overhauled the system or kind of figured out a way just to make it work in their engine, but you can now do more than one clip plane. And what's interesting about it is that since you can do that, they actually made it so that you are able to now select it by the layer, which is a pretty cool addition. So you can drop the clip plane in, and if you just put it here, you kind of see the original, I guess, functionality of it. Like it's just going to clip everything. But and normally you'd only see this, it's on the current layer. So you can kind of toggle between layers. But now this one here is the target layer. So if you go traffic lights, now this will clip everything out. Or sorry, this will clip only the traffic lights out and leave everything else. And I think as an example here, so we'll do like people exterior. So as you can see, all the people are gone. And if you go here, like imported model. So this way you can kind of just focus on the streetscape. This is kind of cool too, because you can sort of isolate particular layers, not only for rendering, but for actually working inside of the viewport. So if you wanted to just focus on the cars or just the people, and you know, there was a lot of stuff going on besides that, you could just get rid of them. And maybe you want the trees gone as well. You can just come in here, drop another one. Now this can get a little bit weird. It would be kind of cool to see if they could almost add them in here so there's more of them, because I can just see this getting a little confusing if there's a bunch of them, but you know, it's not a huge thing. It's just something I noticed. So I think here, is it trees? I'm not sure what one it is, but yeah, basically you get the point that you can drop in two of them. And yeah, so I really like that change. These are like little kind of little tweaks that they can put in. It just gives people more options. Like those are the changes I really like when they do in Lumion, because instead of someone getting stuck and being like, oh, I can't do this, all these little tweaks and changes like that will make it so like maybe they have kind of one more option to fix the problem that they're facing. So pretty cool change overall. The character silhouette functionality that was added in, I think it's a pretty cool one. I personally don't think I'm going to be using it that often, just because I don't really use the silhouettes that much in general. I feel like those are more so for kind of like a sort of like a drafting phase, or sort of just like doing up like some sketches of very early developments. But we don't really do that much. Typically, our studio does like finished products. So we don't often do drafting stage renders. But regardless, like I said, it is pretty cool. And I think that if you're going to combine it with something like the sketch feature, something like that, you could get a pretty cool effect. If you want to activate it, you just go into people and humans, and then you colorize. And so then there's three options. There is this one here, so they're shaded. So this is basically the normal human, or I guess the human topology. It's just that now there's no texture on it, so it's kind of like a styrofoam mode. And then there's polygon. So if any of you use Blender, the best thing that this is comparable to is that polygon is this shade flat mode, and then shaded is like shade smooth. And this way, it's just kind of like a different stylized effect there. And then the flat is the actual silhouette. So this functions in almost the same way as the 2D silhouettes here. It's just that you have, you can make these ones move. And I think, yeah, you can change the color on these ones as well. So they're kind of the same thing, except these ones are now moving. And you can do this for, I think, all of the human layers. The only ones I figured didn't work was the one like the static. Is this one static? No. Um, I will just show that one quickly. So I think it's, yeah, 3D people static. So this one, you can't change this one. I don't know. You can only change the color of the dress. I'm not sure if they just overlooked that or if there's a reason behind that, but yeah. And you can also change all of the farm animals. So if you drop the horse in here, you can click it, colorize, and then, you know, you can do whatever. So yeah, it's like I said, I probably won't use it too much, but I think that this is something that people probably were asking for, because I know people do use the silhouettes a fair bit, and it's a pretty cool change. So surprisingly enough, I actually didn't even know that Lumion had a group feature. Like I always kind of figured that to sort of group stuff together, you just did this, and then you move them around like that. I'm surprised that I didn't know this, but I didn't know you could actually do this until yesterday. Like when I was reading the patch notes, when I saw this kind of like orange marker and stuff, I was like, oh, they added in like some more group functionality. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I guess that, like, I tested it out in 11 or Lumion 11, and yeah, I guess you could do this. It was just really weird. Like it was like I can see why they changed it, because the functionality was not that good. Now it's easy to just kind of pull stuff around. I don't think it was that easy before. Like I think you had to like go into the edit mode here and do some stuff. But something I did notice is that I can move the origin around, but I can't seem to move the people around. So I don't know if that's kind of how that's supposed to work. Like I feel like you are supposed to be able to drag those around. So again, I don't know if this is like a bug or maybe I'm just doing it wrong, because I really did just learn about groups. But yeah, just the fact that like for me, it's like it's enough that I can just drop them where I want and group them and then move them around with this. I think that's a really awesome addition, and it'd be interesting to see if they can kind of improve on it in the future, because one thing I've been saying since construction phasing came out is I think that Lumion needs to look at how to bring in the FBX hierarchies. Like if you have one FBX file, but it has like 5 different components in it, I feel like Lumion needs to have this kind of system where they're all grouped originally, but then you can at least do something with these, like it's kind of like the children in the FBX file. Because that way then you can have it so that you just bring in one big FBX file and the construction phasing will work. I do think that that's something that is going to cause some confusion, but it would be a really nice change if the group functionality got taken even further. Some of you may have noticed that there is a grid mode in the utilities, and there's also a measurement tool. This is one that I feel like a lot of people don't use, but I think it is nice that they kind of did it made these changes for the people that do use it, because now you can show them in rendered mode. So before you couldn't put the measurements into the actual renders, at least not in an easy way that I know of. So what you can do though is you can go to the utilities here, you go grid, you drop it like normal, and then you go select, and now you have like you can bring the grid scale up, just kind of make it how you look or how you want it to look. But now you can hit render, and what we're going to see here, if we go into photo mode, is now this grid is on the ground. So it can kind of give you this cool little effect. And then you can change the color, all that stuff. And just kind of an example, this right here is what they added in. So if you get rid of this and you go back into photo mode, it's not there anymore. And yeah, so that's the grid. And then I will just show an example of measure. This actually took me a bit to figure out how it worked, because the thing I didn't really understand is I thought that there was like, it was like an effect, like you had to do it in the rendered viewport. So I didn't realize until it probably took me like 15 minutes to realize like how to actually get it to work. But yeah, this is it. So it's this little button here, color, make it like red, photo mode. And now you have that there. So if you are doing kind of like a presentation and it is really important to know all the measurements, the Lumion measurement tool is one that I don't think people use a lot, but it is actually a really cool tool, because you can kind of draw perimeters around homes. You can get easy measurements of walls, and now you can put it right into your render. So I really like that. The Lumion devs also decided to, I think they went back a little bit on how they were going about dealing with the fine nature. So I think originally I kind of understand what they were doing, where you can't duplicate it, because they didn't want people to use too many fine nature trees. But I'll be honest with you, I use way too many fine nature trees as is. Like I really don't care that much, just because like Lumion does such a good job at making the files manageable, that even if I kind of like start pushing my computer to the max, like I'll just use a ton of fine nature trees because I think they look good. The issue you run into this is that you'd have to place them all individually. because you couldn't do the alt and duplicate, but now you can. And I think they added some other functionality in, like you can now group them, I believe. Yeah, and so I don't think you could do that before. I really like this change, like this, and this is another one that I know people have been saying a lot in the feedback section about this. So this is a good example of them actually, like, listening to what people are saying and be like, you know what, we kind of made a mistake with this feature. It doesn't make any sense. So let's kind of revert it. It would be nice to see if they could do cluster placement and stuff. That might be kind of wishful thinking, because I think that might be a little too intense for the average Lumion user, I guess. But that being said, it would be kind of interesting if they could unlock certain features, or like kind of have it open by default based on the benchmarks it gives you at the beginning. So maybe make it so that, like, if someone has a really bad computer, it's like they're limited to like 2 reflection planes right off the bat. But then it says, like, if you want to increase it, be like, hey, it's like based on your computer, this might not be the best idea. Like, do you want to proceed? That kind of thing, because then that would make it so that, like, people with weaker computers would understand that what they're doing is going to make the render times go way up, and it wouldn't kind of limit other people. But yeah, that's just kind of something I was thinking about, but that's not too bad. Overall, great change. They the Lumion devs also decided that they're going to change how the lighting gizmos work inside of Lumion. So originally they were set at, I believe, world space. So if it would take up like a set amount of space, and if you like went further away, it would stay the same size but get smaller on your screen. But they made the change so that now the lighting gizmos are their screen space. So an example is, like, if I drop this here, now you just have this little cone. I actually read a comment from Nuno Silva on the Lumion forum, and I do kind of agree with him. Like, while I do really like the fact that it's screen space, I feel like there needs to be some kind of slider or something that you can adjust how big it is, because personally I would want it to come out to like here, because it can be really difficult to see it, and obviously you can't change that because the further in you go, the smaller it gets, and even when you go further back, it is still kind of difficult to see that. They did kind of tweak how the cone angle works. Like, I believe the cone angle is now locked to, I think it's the amount of the IES profile. I wasn't really sure about that part. It does seem like the cone can go a lot bigger now, but, or like the cone angle can go a lot bigger. But this one, I thought that it would get capped kind of at the the edge of the actual light. So I don't completely understand how that change works. But the thing that's kind of important to take away from this is that they changed the gizmos. But it would be nice to see if there was some other functionality added in. I also went through in my Omni Shadow or Omnilight video that now has shadows, but the shadow exclusion zone, basically everything inside of this sphere will be ignored by like the collision will be ignored by the spotlights. This way, if you're just getting some kind of like weird shadows from like filament and like light bulbs or something, you can use this, and then it will just ignore that, so you'll have like this clean looking light like you would in real life. So yeah, this is something that I really like. The shadow exclusion zone, at least, is it's pretty helpful, because I've run into that issue before where you have to place the light not really where you want to, just so you can avoid some weird shadows. The Lumion 11.3 also came, I wouldn't say it's an overhaul to reflections, but I think it's an overhaul to the interface of reflections. So I believe the functionality is all the same, but they made it so that it's just a little more clear kind of what each reflection object does. So example, if you come over here and you look at speed ray, it says reflect the local environment on curved and flat surfaces. Speed ray only reflects what is visible on the screen. And then very accurate planar reflections on flat surfaces. Note excessive use can reduce performance. So what you can do is you can flip this on, and then you can see the change right away, but this is only the normal quality. So you can actually put up high quality, and you can look through it and go, okay, like, what are these all going to look like? Is the high quality worth it? It's just better functionality. You can turn it on and off like that. While you could do it before, it was just not as easy to kind of preview that particular, like the speed ray. And I actually didn't even know that there was multiple levels to this until I saw it, because in the older version of reflections, you could choose like the preview level, but I didn't realize that actually changed the speed ray. I thought that was just like one flat one. Speed ray is a really, really powerful tool, and I hope that they kind of expand on it in the future, because I feel like it does have potential to even be taken kind of the next level, where you can kind of get even better reflections. But yeah, I kind of moving on from this, but speed ray is pretty cool. And the preview is a nice touch. When it comes to reflection planes, this still kind of functions in the same way. So it's preview, like normal quality and none. If you go in here though, you will notice that this does look a little bit different. So they just kind of cleaned this up, made it look a little more modern. Now, if you drop this here, you're going to see that these are kind of our, our planes right here. Now, some of you may not know this because I actually didn't realize what it was until a while ago. But the plane margins will actually make it so instead of being a completely flat plane, it will, well, I guess it is flat, but instead of being completely thin, it will kind of stretch it out so you can get more surfaces. Now, I haven't tested on whether or not this actually increases render times. Because even though it is one reflection plane, it's like reflecting off more surfaces. So I guess that would just depend on how the engine is set up. And like I said, I haven't really tested that. But an example of how it works is like if you put the reflection plane here and you go, okay, these are the windows, and then you take the plane margins and start moving up. As you can see, more and more things are getting included into the render. So now we're picking up, I mean, you don't really need to pick up this stuff up here, but you're picking up the fence, that sort of thing. And it can really help because instead of using multiple reflection planes, you might be able to get away with like just one or two, instead of using like 3 or 4, I mean. So it's a pretty cool addition. You can also click this button to remove them all. And then you can also do the Lumion will analyze the current view and try to place the reflection planes. This one, you could do it, but I'm not going to lie. The fact that it puts 8 of them down for this example is, I think it goes a little too trigger happy. Like that is a crazy amount of reflection planes. Like the fact that it's on like the roofs of the car here, which I honestly didn't even know you could do. Like I didn't know you could put it on objects like that, but you'd probably want to get rid of this. This one definitely should be gone. This one should be gone because the ground is not reflective. Like it's just going to be like killing your render times. And so you can kind of go through here. And like, while it's kind of nice to just show you some of the options, I do think you should go through and just kind of prune some of them. Like this one, for example, like these are almost like overlapping because you have this one, but then you have this one. So it's, yeah, that's, you just got to be aware of that. And get rid of that. So yeah, in this one, I'd probably only use 2, maybe even 1. I really like the changes, but just be aware of that with the reflection planes, because that is probably the worst thing for your render times. And they're really, even though it does look a little bit better, it's not worth the amount of time that it's going to take to render out all those extra planes. So this next one I know for a fact is one that they've been kind of pestered with on the feedback system. And it is kind of cool because I think this opens some doors to having more effects kind of get changed like this in the future. It's the material highlight. So I think it's artistic 2. You go to material highlight. We go to edit, and then we're going to click on this here, go to OK. Now, by default, it's just going to be red. You can change the style to what you want, the transparency if it's a little too strong. And so at this point, this is working the exact same way as Lumion 11. So what got changed is now you can add in multiples. So you can now come into the same render, like photo mode, and you can now put it on multiple textures. So if you're doing a presentation and you wanted to kind of highlight multiple at once, you can do that, no problem. And I think you can just keep adding them. I don't know if there's a limit. I guess you would technically have the limit of running out of materials, but I don't know how many, like what this would go up to. But I feel like people are going to like use at most 5, if that. Like I don't think they'd ever go past that. So it's a pretty cool little change. And this is what I was talking about, like exactly where it's like, people put in the feedback for just like these weird little features, and Lumion said like, yeah, we can do that. So I do think that they're really good. Really good at responding to that kind of stuff. There was a new hotkey added to the functionality of the nature category, but I don't know if it's actually working right now, or maybe if like this particular scene is messing it up or what it is, because if I highlight this stuff and I just drag it up, as you can see, if I hit this button here, conform to landscape, it all kind of goes back into place. But if I drag this up and I hold F, then as you can see on the right-hand side, the shortcut saying conform to landscape appears, but then nothing happens when I hit it. So I don't know, as I said, like if I'm missing kind of a hotkey with it, or if I have to like drag it down or something like that, but it seems like it won't work for me. This was just added in, as I said, so like maybe it's just like there was like a little bug with it or something like that, or maybe there's even a limit of how many trees you could do it with, but I mean, I guess I am just doing it with 1, or if I, yeah, so I like the one in the back there isn't doing it either. So yeah, at very worst, this will be added in. I do really like the fact that they put a hotkey for it because that's something I use a fair bit. So once that's working for me, I will do it. I'm sure they're gonna hot fix it if it is broken. They're pretty quick with that stuff. So yeah, you will be able to do this. But right now, I think at least for some people, the actual functionality might be a little broken on it. I'm not going to get too far into the functionality of how mass move works, but I do want to show you what the change was to mass move, because this is a change that I think Lumion really needed overall. And what it is that you can actually add, or just by default, the mass move paths have smooth edges, and that was a really big problem before because you'd always get these like really hard angles, and so I'm not even really sure how you were supposed to get the people to walk around a perfect circle, whereas now it's really easy. So if you go in here, and let's say we wanted to get this person to, just walk around this. So you can just go here. And then what you want to do is you want to just hold control. You don't have to click anything. And you go maybe up here. And then you just hold control again. Click here. Oops. Control. 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 Oops. So something like that. So it's kind of a good enough example. You could clean it up a lot more, but what I want to show is kind of how this sort of functions. So right here, this is a corner. And when we click it, you can actually see the smoothness. So all you can do is set a rough path around, and then you can come in here and kind of adjust it as needed. I think that more or less this is how the Lumion 11 used to look, with like a really hard edge. So by default, it's now 100. And so you can just kind of, tighten these up as needed, but making people go around kind of like weird objects, or I guess like kind of different shapes, is a lot easier now. And I'm really happy that they put this kind of stuff in, because this is the exact functionality that I've been saying they need to have with the camera tool. If you can't import cameras into Lumion, there needs to be way more functionality with it. And this is more or less what I want it to be able to do. Except instead of this person, the camera follows it, and you can kind of adjust the camera where it's pointing, because that way, you could drag this like this. You needed to make some weird camera path. It can do that, but I don't want to get too far into that. This functionality for mass move is really, really nice. And I'm happy that they were able to get this to kind of work, because I think this opens up a lot of doors for other effects that kind of had this problem. Hopefully, I don't know if they changed it with advanced move as well, but that one definitely needs to have this same kind of change, if that one's going to be as good, because I think I'd probably just try and use this for all of them now, because it's so much easier than trying to like make everything work. I would just like to mention quickly too that probably the biggest feature that was added into Lumion 11.3 is the Omnilight change. A lot of you probably have already seen the video that I released on that, so I don't want to get into it too far here, because I did kind of go more in depth there, and I feel like with all the little things that they did with it, and kind of the, I guess, like the possibilities you can do with it, I really recommend that you watch the other video I made, because I will just quickly go through and talk about this, but I don't want to really get too far into it. With the Omnilight, you can now drop it in, and it will cast shadows. Might be kind of hard to see here. So as you can see, if I move this around, it now casts a shadow, which is really nice. And then I think if you turn on the light source here, yeah, you'll see it in the car, so that you can just make just better reflections and things, like, whether it's like countertops, that sort of stuff. Yeah, the link to that video will be below, but that's all I'm going to get into it here, even though that was the biggest and probably the best change in Lumion 11.3. So I did try and put the biggest changes that I could kind of visualize into this video. However, if you haven't gone through the patch notes, I really recommend you just go and read it. A lot of the information won't really affect you, but I do think it's important that you see everything that was done, so that if you do run into some weird little issue, you might be able to be like, oh, actually, I remember, like, that was changed. And I just like to go through and kind of see all the things, because they don't actually really announce a lot of the big ones. Like in Lumion 11, they just kind of put a little note saying, oh, by the way, we removed the video cap. It used to be 50 megabytes. Now there just isn't one, which was, in my opinion, one of the biggest changes for me, because I've been saying that if that gets removed, I can actually do a lot with it. And I am going to be getting an 8K camera at some point to kind of make HDRI videos. But the point being is that, like, if you didn't go through and read those patch notes, you might actually miss something that you might have wanted added in. But the one in particular that I wanted to kind of talk about, because I think that a lot of people may not even really realize that this stuff happens. But so in my opinion, Lumion is like the best software when it comes to actually optimizing your file and condensing it down for graphics cards that maybe don't have as much VRAM. Like scenes that I wouldn't be able to render in Blender with a 3090 because it would go over the VRAM, like without optimizing anything. Lumion can handle no problem on my 2080 Ti, which is only 11. Just because they do so many things just to like help maybe condense the textures down a little bit so that you won't notice the quality loss, but the file is like a fraction of the size, or is much more manageable. So this is another one that they did, the improved video memory management. Content on hidden layers and unused variations are now unloaded from VRAM when the Lumion project exceeds the maximum VRAM on the graphics card -1. So once you start getting near that cap, it will actually start to get rid of the hidden layers and the unused variations, which I'm going to be honest, I thought it did that anyways, but it is kind of cool that they started thinking about this stuff, because that just means that people with smaller memory amounts on their graphics cards are now going to be able to actually render these things out. Because I've talked about this in a couple of videos. Like if you go over your VRAM, like if your Lumion project is 6 gigabytes and your graphics card is 4 gigabytes, your render time is going to go through the roof. Like it's going to take maybe like 4 or 5 times longer, maybe even more, depending on how long it's going to take, because every single time your computer needs to get a text or anything, it has to actually talk to the CPU, like, you know, and deal with the other parts of the computer. Whereas like if it's just in your VRAM, the graphics card can just grab it right away. I am going to be making a video going more in depth about why it is important, but all you really need to know here is that for the people that have kind of had some graphics card struggles, Lumion 11.3 may actually be able to help improve some of that issue. Hope everybody learned a thing or two about the new Lumion 11.3 version. I am a really, really big fan of this patch. As some of you commented on the last video, you can see I was very excited about the Omnilight changes, because that was one of the 3 big changes I think Lumion needs to implement. So now it's really down to 2. And that being camera imports and vertex animations. Those are the 2 things I really want to see. I know people really want to see like the ray tracing, and every time a new version comes out and there's not ray tracing, you know, people get upset about it. But the reality is that if you don't have a 20 series or a 30 series graphics card, it doesn't matter if they put ray tracing in. That's why I think that a lot of like the changes are kind of that's why ray tracing has been at the forefront, because I don't think people realize like how difficult it can be. Like D5 uses ray tracing quite a bit, and I know a lot of people that use Lumion may not actually have the computer needed to use D5 in a particular way. I would really like to see that functionality added in, but I am more than happy with the changes that were put into 11.3. That Omnilight change, as I mentioned, there is a video that I already did about it, where I just kind of talk about how much easier it is for people learning Lumion for the first time, or people that have been using it for a while, to get better renders now, because only having spotlights cast shadows made it so you had to do a lot of wacky stuff with lighting, and it wasn't really intuitive. But that's fixed now. And there's also I just want to touch on it one more time, but like the majority of changes I went over in this video, I almost guarantee you that people were asking or sending feedback to Lumion about it, because they're very like niche changes that it's like kind of just taking a feature and adjusting it a little bit. So if you guys do have features or even just notes that you want to send to the Lumion team, I highly recommend you use the feedback system, because they do look at it. Like I think 3 or 4 things that I have put in feedback over the last like year and a half have been included in Lumion at some point. So it's probably not just me that was saying those changes, but you know, it kind of goes to show that they are reading this stuff. So if you are frustrated, or you can't get something to work, or you just want to say they did a good job, I really recommend you check out the feedback system. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you can join us for some future videos. If you are subscribed to the channel, I just want to say thank you very much for checking out my content. It's been a lot of fun meeting everyone, and just kind of you know, learning Lumion with everyone. So hopefully you guys will keep sticking around the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.